No, I actually like Caitlin. And I'm just being
Right.
real and truthful. She has brought millions, I wouldn't be surprised if it's billions of eyes onto the W and onto women's sports.
Although Sophie Cunningham has never been one to hold out, the WNBA is being rocked by her most recent disclosure regarding Caitlin Clark. Additionally, keep in mind that she could be playing by now if it weren't in the WNBA. Put an end to the rumors that you're leaving or fleeing abroad. Sophie just provided a direct explanation that goes beyond any injury report. What she revealed highlights the harsh realities, unrelenting pressure, and unrealistic expectations that the league's top player must deal with. Hype isn't the point here. It has to do with surviving. Take a seat as we reveal Sophie's startling revelation and its true significance. The voice that won't be quiet. Sophie Cunningham has chosen the more difficult route in a league where honesty carries a cost and silence is frequently rewarded. Sophie has established herself as the WNBA's most unvarnished truth-teller, in contrast to the majority of players who adhere to pre-written responses and cautious public relations spin. And she is literally paying for it. She was penalized thousands of dollars by the league in 2024 alone for publicly expressing what many players quietly mumble behind closed doors. It all began with a TikTok post criticizing dubious officiating. One comment cost her $500 out of her income. Is it slow, though? It might not be helpful. Then, she had to pay an additional $1,500 for a podcast episode that revealed erratic calls. You were fined for episode 1, so will the WNBA fine me? They locate $1,500 for me. What? I ask myself. This is just the beginning, I think. Like, you're kidding. The penalty amount wasn't even revealed before she went so far as to accuse the league of open partiality. With the hope that the message was understood, they simply gave her another fine and moved on. Quit talking and go play. Sophie, however, declines to engage in that game. She is extremely harmful to the current quo because she never stops talking. Consider it. The annual salary range for WNBA players is approximately $64,000 to $242,000. A $1,500 fine is comparable to 2 weeks' worth of rent or a portion of the player's off-season salary for many. Almost anyone would be silenced by such financial punishment. Sophie, however, continues to move forward, take the hits, and inform fans of the true situation within the league. She is now more than just another athlete venting after a challenging match because of this. As the player who is prepared to take on penalties, criticism, and possible career consequences in order to expose the truth, she has emerged as the league's unofficial whistleblower. And her voice is very significant because of her renown. Fans are aware that Sophie's statements are not based on speculative supposition or a desperate attempt to get attention. This is direct information from someone who works in the industry. Her choice to continue speaking up despite the consequences lays the groundwork for everything that comes after. That explains why her remarks regarding Caitlin Clark are so significant. Sophie isn't trying to make a story. She is bringing to light unpleasant facts that the league would prefer to ignore. And for that reason, her voice is unavoidable. Was Sophie implying that Clark was being held back by the league, or that there was covert pressure? Keep your eyes open. Everything is altered by the response. The shocking revelation regarding Caitlin Clark. The WNBA's most pressing question has been the same for weeks. When will Caitlin Clark return? In an attempt to obtain a specific timeline, reporters have questioned coaches, teammates, and league officials. Desperate to understand, fans peruse updates every day. However, they have been given ambiguous statements in place of precise responses. We'll see next week, day by day. No update as of yet. The quiet has only increased conjecture. Then, on her podcast, Sophie Cunningham broke it. She said a single line that completely altered the topic without any drama or build-up. If she weren't playing in the WNBA, she may be. You also need to keep in mind that she might be playing by now if it weren't in the WNBA. It was a thunderclap of words. They weren't from an outsider making conjectures from the sidelines or a social media enthusiast. They come from someone who works in the league and is familiar with the harsh realities of competing at this level. Millions of Caitlin Clark's followers were not at all surprised by Sophie's statement. It was concerning. Pay attention to what Sophie said. This goes beyond Caitlin requiring additional time to heal from an injury. It has to do with the setting she's attempting to get back to. Sophie made it plain. The reason for Caitlin's absence is not a lack of strength or fortitude. It has to do with the WNBA's strict requirements. Caitlin was dominant at Iowa. She sold out venues, drew record crowds, and raised TV ratings to all-time highs as the face of college basketball. She was a generational talent because of her vision, range, and ability to alter games on her own. However, Sophie disclosed that those accomplishments don't always translate in the WNBA. You can't just be good here. You must be perfect. Additionally, the league will devour you if you're not prepared on a competitive, mental, or physical level. The shocker was that Caitlin's skill wasn't being disparaged by Sophie. The majority of people didn't want to hear the truth that she was revealing. Even a superstar like Caitlin Clark needs more time to adjust to the WNBA's new level of intensity. It is a survival issue rather than a sentimental one. Caitlin could be playing any place else right now, Sophie said, highlighting how harsh this league has gotten, both overseas and even in college. Caitlin may already be entertaining fans on the court. However, the pressure is so great here that hurrying back may endanger not just her season, but her career as a whole. Sophie's words struck so strongly because of this. She wasn't merely giving fans updates. She was raising the alarm and revealing a league that could be too cruel even for its most talented player. But what hope does anyone else have if the WNBA is as harsh on a generational talent like Caitlin? To find out, keep watching. The WNBA's harsh standards. Sophie Cunningham wasn't exaggerating when she stated that Caitlin Clark could be playing if it weren't in the WNBA. She was referring to a reality that most fans only see a glimpse of. However, athletes experience pain every night. College basketball is not the only step up to the WNBA. The universe is completely different. Additionally, good is insufficient in this reality. Caitlin Clark was untouchable at Iowa. Against collegiate defenses, she was unbeatable due to her skill, range, and vision. However, the defenders in the WNBA are more physical, quicker, and stronger. In her program, each player on the court was once the best. Someone who clawed their way through years of fierce competition just to live deserves a place on every roster. And Sophie stated it plainly. You can't just be talented at this level. You must be perfect. She used language that caused supporters to pause when describing the league. Sophie frequently compares WNBA games to rugby rather than hoops. There is constant touch. The blows are more intense. Gamers freely discuss the necessity of armor to survive a season. As referees, they permit significantly more contact than spectators think, fostering an atmosphere in which being tough is expected. It is required. Imagine returning to that type of stage after suffering an injury. Stars are gradually reintroduced into most leagues with limits, more referee protection, and minutes. However, there is very little room for error in the WNBA. The league's brutality and one slip-up can put an end to a comeback before it even starts. Sophie was exposing this harsh norm. Caitlin may already be back on the floor overseas. She would most likely be playing by now in college, but in the WNBA, making a hasty comeback would put one at danger for far more than a few unimpressive games. It could indicate recurrent injuries, a decline in self-esteem, or even setbacks in one's job. Here's the crucial information. Caitlin wasn't being referred to as soft by Sophie. The exact opposite. She stated unequivocally that Caitlin's toughness and work ethic are unquestionable. She was drawing attention to how extreme the WNBA had grown. The league is at its deepest point ever. The competition is intense from the starting five to the final bench position. There are no easy matches or weak points. Each possession is a conflict. Additionally, each participant has the ability to reveal even the smallest flaw. Sophie was referring to this same fact when she stated that Caitlin's absence isn't only about healing. Because she doesn't have heart, Caitlin isn't sitting out. Because anything less than complete preparedness is a recipe for catastrophe in the modern WNBA, she is not participating. Players aren't given enough time by the league to settle into a rhythm. They must come prepared, or else they run the risk of getting engulfed. And that's Sophie's bombshell's core. Caitlyn's predicament goes beyond a simple personal hardship. It shows how the league has changed throughout time. Even stars from previous generations now require more time to survive in the WNBA because it has become so physical, competitive, and unforgiving. The standard is harsh. Furthermore, it might not even be sustainable, as Sophie suggested. A two-tier system and partiality. Biting her tongue has never been Sophie Cunningham style. Furthermore, her criticism of the WNBA was motivated by irritation with what she perceived to be a risky trend rather than resentment. She saw more than just the league's demanding requirements as the problem. The problem was that their demands weren't given equal weight. She claimed that although some players received protection and a buffer, others were left to put up with constant violence without assistance from referees. She described it as a two-tier structure. The most obvious instance occurred after a furious altercation when JCS Sheldon struck Caitlin Clark with a vehicle and fired a shot directly into her face. It wasn't nuanced. It was careless, blatant, and might have easily put Clark out of commission once more. However, the officials downgraded it after reviewing it. A blatant one. This type of penalty is more appropriate for a negligent bump than a potentially harmful strike. A few seconds later, Marina McBride gave Clark a two-handed shove that sent her flying to the parquet. Just a shove, with no attempt at the ball or pretense of a basketball move. And the reaction, no expulsion, no grave repercussions. The message was very obvious when crew chief Ashley Gloss defended the decision, saying it didn't fulfill the requirements for an ejection. Clark was by herself. Sophie has been warning for a long time about that precise quiet and inaction.